There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So, hi, how you doing?
Hey, hello
So,
again.
hello, and welcome to Dose of Deborah. I'm your host, Deborah Howell, and tonight I am really grateful to have my guest, Chris Ware. And a little bit about Chris. He sent me info here. Hold on. Let's read about you. Chris works with early stage medical technology companies to define compliance strategies, product development plans, and regulatory approaches.
There you go.
Sounds really like sophisticated.
Yes.
You're
Thank you.
smart. You're a really smart guy. Thank you so much, Chris, for taking time out. And really, what I hope for us to be able to, um, talk about is the issues that we're seeing in healthcare with practitioners, with people who are right there, up close and personal in patient care, and what are they experiencing, and what
Hmm.
support do they have in this system.
Yeah.
Things along those lines. But just letting folks know a little bit of the background. Meeting you and our initial discussion
Hmm.
had to do with you looking at going to medical school, right?
Right.
And then you changed. You had a change of heart for reasons, and that maybe I'll ask you to share a little bit, and then we can maybe expand on that, because I think it's relevant to the conversation that needs to be had. You know.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, you're right. I started undergrad and was in the pre-med track, specifically studying neuroscience. And I've always been really interested in the brain in particular, but also in overall biology and medicine and how the body works. And I also am, very like a caring person. I love to be there for people and listen and support others. So it seemed like medicine was exactly the right track. So about junior year is when you start, studying and taking the MCATs and planning on which medical school you want to go to. And in that process, I started to speak with some physicians and spent some time in hospitals volunteering and being exposed to the hospital environment. And also I had friends who were in medical school or who had just graduated from medical school. And I got the understanding that there was a relatively small amount of time actually spent caring for people and a lot more time on either an administrative end or being, more or less following a very standard kind of guideline or requirements of a clinical care practice. So I decided that, there were better ways that I could continue learning about the brain and helping people outside of the medical route. So I decided to go into the industry. And for the last 10 years, I've been working with medical technology companies to actually create the tools that doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers use to treat people.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it sounds like really being there. Not so much pushing papers, right?
Yeah.
You didn't want to just be um, in the administrative. Yeah, because that's part of it. I mean, we have to learn these things, but then all of a sudden you're out of touch. You're in something, and you feel like you're spending more time doing the thing that you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
Um, for all that time and effort, and certainly the resources that it takes, right, to go to
Yeah. I mean, I,
school.
I didn't even touch on the economics end of it, but
Yeah.
that is a huge consideration too. It's a matter, and a little bit, I mean, it's a function of how medical education works, but to make that decision at what, 21, 22 years old, that, hey, I'm going to sign up for another 10 years of education and another 200, $300,000 of student loans to get this degree. Like I wasn't extremely smart at age 21, but I was smart enough to know that like taking that much commitment and not knowing exactly what if I was into it or not wasn't a very good idea. And then coming on the other end of it, when you look at the compensation for physicians and surgeons, it's not out of this world. I mean, it's healthy, but you're not, from an ROI perspective, didn't make sense to me at all to invest that much time and money if I didn't love exactly what I was going to be doing and also didn't have that much of an economic, reward at the end of it.
Right. And I think for what I've seen is that, a physician has to work oftentimes in multiple ways, right? Not just one way, because insurance limits on the reimbursement. I mean, honestly, it's not right. The reimbursement that.
What do you mean?
So as far, like I work in the rehab and the acute rehab, and so we have physicians that go from rehab to rehab to rehab. They have privilege, to be able to see patients in different settings, and so you have to, pretty much people are having to spread themselves thin.
I mean, as a physician, you need to be in multiple locations.
So that's one aspect of care. Or if you have, here's the other, you have an office, and then how many patients are you seeing in a given day, right? Because I can tell you from the perspective of working with patients who go to appointments to see their physician, and then they're overbooked, and they are literally sent back home. Wow. To me, that is unacceptable. I'm sorry. If you overbook and you have no idea what it takes for that stroke patient, right, to get ready, the hours of time and the preparation and the coordination to get there, for you to have them wait an hour, 2 hours, and then say, oh, sorry, we'll have to reschedule you. And I have seen this. Yeah. I have seen this multiple times, and I recently just had this experience with another patient of mine, and honestly, that's unacceptable. So, and to be the physician, how can that be acceptable to them, knowing that, in the fullness of patient care, you want to consider, right, what is involved in the actual look of caring, right, from making that appointment, when the customer service on the telephone, we have a lot of different aspects to care that is being compromised. Yeah. Being compromised based on another driver, saying you have X amount of time and you need to see all these people and manage care, right? And you're squeezing everybody in. Yeah. And the patient is the last one who, is to be considered. But then again, the stress and trying to manage patient care has become really, it's not sustainable, and it's not effective. And for those in practice, because if you think about, if you went to school and this is your outcome, where you have to pack your day and then see patients, and rush through and looking at electronic medical records, which is another whole story to itself, where you don't have all the information. You have to really go all over the place to find information to put that profile together. Yeah. Because systems don't talk.
Yeah, and that's one thing where being on the medical technology side is exciting for me, because we're able to use technology to sort of, if I could just think about how medical care has, I'll call it, evolved in America. Maybe that's not the right word, but it started off with probably one physician treating one patient by examining them and then understanding what was going on, and then giving, based on their professional opinion, a therapy or a diagnosis. As technologies evolve, we've layered on a lot of different things as far as the diagnostic modality, the treatment, the therapy, the information systems, the data analysis that theoretically can make treatment better, but it's also caused so many barriers between the physician and the patient, and so many friction steps that now I feel like technology is trying to rein it back in and try to peel away layers of interaction to then let physicians and healthcare providers focus on the actual patient, not on running the tests and interpreting the labs and going through the EMRs and talking to insurance and getting appointments scheduled. So, I mean, in particular, I was at a meeting about a month ago. It was the American Academy of Cardiology. It was their annual, technology assessment meeting where they spent a day just going through the latest innovations in cardiology and cardiac care. And one of the major themes of that meeting was the use of artificial intelligence in medicine and diagnostics. And some of the group was on the camp of, we're concerned that this is just another layer of technology, and eventually people will try to automate out physicians, to say we're going to replace doctors with robots and machine learning platforms. But the overwhelming response was, no, this stuff is supposed to make your lives easier so you can actually focus more on the patient than on technology. And that's what's exciting for me. The company I work for now is called Neural Analytics, and we're making an automated transcranial Doppler imaging platform. What that means is that we're making a way for any physician or any hospital to be able to use a kind of brain imaging technology that previously was only available to hospitals who had a highly trained specialist. And what you're saying before has happened in the history of TCD imaging, where you could schedule an exam for a patient and they would have to find the one hospital in their area that had transcranial Doppler imaging trained technologists and, drive across town, go to their appointment. If that tech was booked or if that physician wasn't available, they'd have to reschedule for 2 weeks later, go back home, or they wouldn't be able to be seen. The machine that we're developing replaces that technological intervention. So there's never a resource constraint for that treatment or that particular diagnostic. So as long as the patient can get to where the machine is, they can be tested and the results can go to the neurologist right away, rather than having to wait for the appointments and the scheduling and all of that administrative overhead. So I do like seeing how the technology is helping to eliminate some of those barriers you were mentioning, as far as the time constraints physicians are under with the current medical approach. Technology can help to widen some of those.
So with the tech, these are like processes, right? We have, and so the processes that we have set up in a system, right, that work for the individual practitioner or that works for the diagnostic center, right? And even when I talk about the individual practitioner, we're talking, you have various specialties, right?
Yeah.
And the centerpiece to all of this is the patient that has to make their way to each one of these places. And they have their own process, right? They're what are they thinking? What are they feeling, right? And what does it take for them to go to each one of these places at any point in time? And then to gather that information, especially if they've had multiple tests, seeing multiple doctors, and we're not even, and think about pharmaceuticals, right? So we have the complexity of healthcare it's pretty broad, it's pretty complex, and we are having decisions made from this level that I feel is a huge gap from the insurance company, from right stakeholders that are making decisions that are not helpful. They're just not helpful to the practitioner, right, who wants to have a complete picture, because we're talking about safety. We're talking about efficacy. We're talking about things that matter to the ultimate outcome of delivery. And when these pieces aren't considered in real time, this is the barrier is equates to a safety issue. This barrier
Yeah.
plays out in something that can be irreversible, possibly.
Yeah. Let me give
Right?
you a very simple example of how this happens in everyday care, and something that, again, we discussed at this AAC meeting was there are emerging technologies now that can use their software program that sit on top of traditional cardiac imaging, meaning instead of just looking at a sonogram of the heart or an image, the software can actually analyze the motion of the muscles and the ejection fraction of the left ventricle, and can draw a picture, can overlay, almost like put a filter on the heart image and highlight which areas may be damaged, which areas may have injury to them. The current medical guidelines require that those images be reviewed by a radiologist before the cardiologist can see them, before the cardiac surgeon. Even though it's the cardiac surgeon who is operating or getting the assessment, it's produced as a very easy to read diagnostic output. It's literally a photo. It's a 3D image of a heart with red highlights where it's damaged, green highlights where it's healthy. But the current guidelines for interpreting those require that they go to a radiologist to review it. All the other exams are the same way. So now you have radiologists who are just getting inundated with tests and tests and tests. And it's at least hours, if not days, before the cardiologist hears back from them. And to your point, that's absolutely putting a patient's heart in jeopardy if they're having some kind of ischemic event or any kind of heart issue. It takes so much time and money to change that standard of care because of insurance regulation, because of clinical practice guidelines, because of patient lobbying or physician lobbying groups, where there's this kind of systemic resistance, or it's like the odds are kind of stacked against the patient sometimes when it comes to the standard of medical care.
Yeah, and I currently work in acute rehab, but it's not even just in our setting. You're looking at doing more with less. It's a numbers game. So you have X amount of nurses for how many patients, right? How many, right? To take it so that nurse will see that maximum capacity, and they're a little stressed because you have people who are in pain and they want things now, right?
Yeah.
And you have CNAs, and that they are doing the best that they can. You have doctors coming in and basically, and this is, it's sad to say, because as a physician, having the responsibility on your shoulder for that patient's course of care, when you go in and you don't have time to develop a rapport with that patient to really understand what's going on, especially in a hospital setting, right? That if you're just kind of going through because you have X number of people to see, and maybe this is not the only facility that you're going to be running through, that how effective is that? And more than that, we're going in your heart, like, is this what you signed up for initially? Because the risk is higher. The risk of something going wrong, and some of the surveys I've put out, I mean, I'm hearing a lot that people do not trust their care because you have to question. You have to question what someone is saying.
Yep.
Right? Especially if that someone is at the end of their day, at the start of their day. I mean, there are a lot of variables in this, and I think that the consideration for what healthcare providers go through is not being considered, and so, and it affects everyone. You see professionals that are coming in, and and look at their faces, right? People look tired.
Yeah.
People look tired.
Well, and the data is there, of the amount of increased errors due to a certain number of hours working or doing, and that's for very manual tasks, right? When I'm thinking about helping to set up a manufacturing process line for a medical device company, we have to think about, okay, this technician is going to put widget A into widget B and then push it down the assembly line to widget C. We think about the error rates of saying, well, okay, they can only do this for 4 hours and they have to stop, or we can't have them go from one to the other and back, because when you switch things that you're doing, you're more likely to make a mistake. That's common to all humans, and the fact that kind of consideration isn't widely adopted in medical practice, it seems ridiculous. It's basic, behavioral, like human performance.
Yeah, and and it's really common sense,
Yeah.
That you won't be as clear in thinking, and especially in the background, looking at, one of the things is fascinating is the nervous system and, the autonomic system, and in the background of sounds, right? Think about all the beeps and the sirens going off, or the, telemetry, and you got it, right? You have all of that, and you're not even tuned into it because it's just there, right?
Yep.
It's not registering, but it can affect how you're sleeping, right? It can affect your attitude, and these sort of things. Not to mention, again, because there is this role that we are in to provide care, and the people that we're serving. I mean, to remember why we're there in the first place, and if we're just trying to hold on, right, just to let's get through the day, consider that we can also be on the other end, right?
Yeah.
And be that patient in the bed. And this is, I've had physicians and healthcare professionals, nurses, as my patients.
Yeah.
This is not this is equal opportunity. Anyone can.
Yeah, at some point everybody's going to experience
You got it. So we just really need to, healthcare professionals need to take a look at what are we doing, right? That we can take better care of ourselves, that we can promote health. We can actually show up like we care, and in the environment that we are working in, that we're cultivating, that we start to reconsider what is actually meaningful and of value in our lives, because that also is something that is picked up on a level that is nonverbal, right? Does someone care? You feel that you're, someone's listening to you, that they're present to you, that they really are there with your best interest at heart. And those are big question marks. And part of that requires healthcare professionals to think about the position that they're in, the decision that they made, just like that early decision that you made, right? That said, hey, maybe this is not for me. But if you did stick it out and you followed through, like, what is it that is going to keep you going, that will be fulfilling? And again, it is not just this one-sided thing. It really is this collaborative process that we're in. And, and the things that you're doing with the technology is fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
And I would just love, we're running short on time here, but just to let folks know, if they would like to learn more about what you're doing, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So I'm obviously very passionate about medicine and medical technology and technology in general, specifically in neuroscience. So I love, meeting, startup founders or technologists who want to create companies, and talking to them about the best way to do that and get that technology out there. And the best way to get in touch with me would just be email. So my email address is where Chris, and then the number 8, number 7 @gmail.com.
WARE7.
Mhm. Yep.
at Gmail.
WAREC87@gmail.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're super super awesome, and
Thanks.
you're brilliant though. I mean, really, neuroscience. Neuroscience is fascinating, and anything that we can do to help, align ourselves with the body, with what
Yeah.
technology can do to really look at the the simulation, right? I guess how can we take the best of everything to support those in practice, to make work more efficient, so we can cut out maybe some
Right.
pieces, right? That time element and that administrative uh, madness that's going on, but that we start taking back some control in our lives.
Yeah,
And
getting rid of all the non-value add
right,
stuff that there is. Right. That's the goal, I think, on
yeah,
the medical technology side.
yeah. So we'll have to do some more chatting around this area. So
I
I
would hope so. Yeah.
I know you're busy, so I so certainly appreciate your time.
Oh,
And
it's a pleasure. I'm thrilled that you're doing these. I think it's a great. I love your perspective on the industry and on putting people first and being heart centered with the medical profession. And this is a great way to spread that.
well, healthcare professionals, we need attention. We really
Yeah.
need immediate attention. All right, because it does matter. And I would like for folks to provide any feedback on this conversation that we're having. You can reach me on Facebook at drdebhowell.com. And I have some blogs now out on doseofdeborah.com. And
Yes.
yeah.
So happy.
So yeah, it's cool. But thank you again, Chris. I really, really appreciate your time, and definitely we'll have to get back together again. Okay.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Cool. Alrighty.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Bye. Good
Bye.
night.